Why, hello there. This episode I talk about infamous quacks, people accused of malpractice or found guilty of malpractice, aka quackery. I also have good news, everyone, and pulp culture recommendations from a news segment called Bare Naked Reviews. All that in this episode of
Healthy Schmelthy.
Yeah!
Healthy Schmelthy.
Yeah!
Healthy Schmelthy.
Yeah!
Welcome to Healthy Schmelthy, the fanciest, schmanciest public health podcast, making health and wellness music to your ears. I'm Rishi B, and a quick note that music breaks for today's episode comes courtesy of the band Starfucker, based from Portland, Oregon. If you dig them, get more of them at starfucker.com. That's STRFKR.com. So yeah, this episode is Infamous Quacks. I'll talk about the controversial man behind the Anti-Vaccination campaign, that's Andrew Wakefield. And I'll also talk about the man who sees nothing but miracles, Dr. Oz. I'll also talk about two health disasters in the U.S. government's history, which led to its creation of the Food and Drug Administration, aka FDA. But first, I don't just like to say all these things and talk into your ears. I like to open up to my audience, just so y'all know a little bit about the man speaking so seductively, so lusciously, so drippingly wet into your ears. Let's get some full disclosure. I have a master's of public health. I work in the healthcare industry. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, but mostly ladies, I think peanut butter jelly sandwiches are all the proof you need to prove God's existence. Yeah, peanut butter jelly sandwiches, are you kidding me? With that freaking 60-40 jelly to peanut butter ratio? Pop it in the toaster just a smidge? That shit'll make you feel warm and fuzzy as a motherfucker. Whoa, that was pretty hot, but alright, now that I got you all hot and ready, talking about PB&Js, let's get this shit started, but before we do, it's time for...
Good news, everyone!
Alright, good news, everyone. This story comes from New York. Officers finish treehouse for slain state trooper's daughter. So the state trooper who was slain, his name is Trooper Joel Davis. He was 36 and he was fatally shot July 9th by an army soldier after Davis responded to reports of gunfire at the soldier's home. The soldier attacked others before surrendering to the troopers. The soldier also attacked his own wife. It's kind of a sad story, but it's also one of people making lemonade out of the lemons they're left with. For after this incident happened and the trooper Davis was killed, a team of 35 active and retired troopers, including sheriff's deputies and police officers, they spent a day finishing building a treehouse for the family of slain trooper Joel Davis. Davis was a county sheriff's deputy before becoming a trooper in 2013, and he's survived by his wife and 3 children. If you want to see more about this story, I'll have a link at the show notes for this episode. That's at rishib.com, and that also includes pictures of his children playing in the finished treehouse. Alright, well, we're really moving now, folks. Let's talk about some quacks. Alright, so first up is the man behind the anti-vaccination campaign. That's Andrew Wakefield, a former UK gastroenterologist and medical researcher. He was accused of quackery and was subsequently stripped of his license.
The important thing to say is that back in 1996-97, I was made aware of children developing autism, regressive autism, following exposure, in many cases, to the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. Such was my concern about the safety of that vaccine that I went back and reviewed every safety study, every pre-licensing study of the MMR vaccine and other measles-containing vaccines before they were put into children and after. And I was appalled with the quality of that science. It really was totally below par, and that has been reiterated by other authoritative sources since.
Now, there's a lot of controversy behind this guy. There's a lot of people who see his work and his subsequent loss of his license as sort of a martyrdom sacrifice for the cause that few people believe in, that vaccines cause autism and other serious problems. Now, he has his supporters, obviously, and perhaps calling him a quack is unfair since he earned his credentials fair and square, at least as far as I know. But, just based off of the work that he did with his credentials, I think it's fair to call him a quack. But I just want you to know, in case that there's any listeners here who support him or are 50-50, I did spend some time reviewing his defense because I wanted to give him a fair shake. We'll get into that in a second. First, let's talk about what this guy, Andrew Wakefield, is known for. So just in case you don't know, Andrew Wakefield is known for a 1998 research paper published in the Independent International Weekly General Medical Journal called The Lancet. Wakefield's paper claimed to have linked the MMR vaccine to regressive autism and colon inflammation. So what he did, it was him and a few other researchers. They published this paper where they examined cases of 12 children who each had autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders. Now, in the paper, it was reported that in 8 of the 12 children with regressive autism, the onset of developmental changes closely followed them receiving an MMR vaccination. And in one of the 12 children, after they received the vaccination, it subsequently followed with measles infection. The paper also claimed that 11 children, biopsy histology showed patchy chronic inflammation in the colon. Remember, Andrew Wakefield was a gastroenterologist. So the conclusion of the paper was that there was an apparent association between the MMR vaccine and a syndrome of regressive autism and inflammatory bowel changes. And that was in 1998. Andrew Wakefield also had a follow-up paper 4 years later that claimed to find measles in the colons of autistic children via something called polymerase chain reaction. I don't know what that is, but it has something to do with the vaccine. So basically, the MMR vaccine caused measles to show up in the colons of these children. Well, here's the problem. Since then, no scientist not directly linked to Andrew Wakefield has been able to replicate the work that he and this group of researchers put in this research paper from 1998 and 2002. Furthermore, pretty much only Andrew Wakefield is left supporting this paper because most of the other people who put their names on this original 1998 research paper have since withdrawn their names from it. It was later discovered he had a conflict of interest because he was paid by trial lawyers seeking to sue vaccine manufacturers right before the 1998 study began. Also, curiously, months before publishing this 1998 paper, he applied for a patent for a safer measles vaccine. Now, it was due to these financial conflicts of interest that Andrew Wakefield was charged of scientific misconduct, and those charges were brought to him by the British General Medical Council. And in the trials that followed, it came out that for the 1998 research, Wakefield admitted to paying children £5 for samples of their blood, and he found these kids at his son's birthday party. Also, in the proceedings, via an expert, it was revealed that the laboratory that these samples were tested in, the laboratory appeared to be set up for cross-contamination with the measles virus. All this was contrary to the best clinical interests, and Dr. Wakefield did not have the requisite pediatric qualifications, nor did he seek the right approval for the tests that he conducted. It was also alleged that in most of the 12 cases, each case being a child who had a neurodevelopmental disorder, including autism. And so in each of these 12 children, the children's ailments, as described in the research paper, were different from their hospital and general practitioner records. And although the research paper claimed that problems came on within days of their vaccine, in only one case did medical records suggest that their ailments were from the vaccine. And in the other cases, the medical concerns raised by the paper as being linked to the vaccine were actually symptoms the children had before they were vaccinated. So after all this, 3 doctors, including Wakefield, were accused of conducting the study on a basis which was not approved by the hospital's ethics committee. Wakefield then lost his license in 2010 for ethical violations and failure to disclose potentially competing financial interests. All right, so that was a lot of information that I read off of a piece of paper there, but that's just to give you a background of where this guy came from and actually where a lot of the basis for the anti-vaccination campaign comes from. So his paper continues to live on as vaccination rates have declined in both the UK, where he's from, and also the USA, via Jenna McCarthy and many others who support the anti-vaccination campaign, despite lack of evidence, really. But outbreaks of measles have since risen since the paper was published. Vaccination rates have gone down, measles has gone up. Great. There are people who support him, so I thought I would pay some service to them and see what their defense of Andrew Wakefield is. So one of the big things was that he paid his son and also some of his son's friends at his son's birthday party for their blood samples. And this is waved off as an error of judgment. Wakefield admitted that this was a poor choice. He didn't think he would need to report how exactly he got these samples, which he used for his test. And as far as not declaring his financial conflicts of interests, according to some of his defenders at the time in 1998, the Lancet didn't require that researchers claim their conflicts of interests. And also he received, regarding the fact that he received a large sum of money from a legal group, the money that he received, according to the defenders, didn't go towards the original purpose of the study in question. It went towards the follow-up paper in 2002 related to the inflammatory colon and bowel syndrome. So what I find interesting in these defenses is that the error of judgment happened. Yeah, he received a conflict of interest, but he didn't have to report it, so it's not that big of a deal. And he had an error of judgment, so he just asked his son's friends and his son for their blood samples. I don't have a medical degree, but I can tell you if I were ever to do a clinical trial, I wouldn't go to my son or their friends. I have enough common sense. So, all right, next up, here are some real quack products that led to the creation of the FDA. Before I get into that, just wanted to let you know that you can catch all episodes of Healthy Schmelthy on YouTube, SoundCloud, and at rishib.com, and also many podcast apps. So in case you don't know, there's apps like Pocket Casts, and iTunes has their own podcast app in the Apple Store. And also you can hear the episodes via download from the iTunes Store directly. Many ways to catch the podcast. And so please make sure you use all of them. Please give me a positive review on iTunes. That helps me out a lot. And subscribing also helps me out a lot. Hey, let's get into this FDA business. What the heck is FDA? Is it Fish Dogs Anonymous? What the heck is a fish dog? No, silly, it's Food and Drug Administration. So what exactly does the FDA do? Just a quick little summary here. The FDA oversees products that account for roughly 0.2 cents of every dollar spent by the average American consumer. And the agency grew from a single chemist in the U.S. Department of Agriculture back in 1862 to now approximately a staff of 15,000 employees, a budget of $4.4 billion, and their staff comprises of chemists, pharmacologists, physicians, microbiologists, veterinarians, pharmacists, lawyers, many other occupations. How did it get to all that? Because it wasn't always that way. So here are a couple incidents involving quackery that spurred the formal creation of the FDA in the 60s. So all these incidents occurred around the 20s and 30s. So the first incident here is involving a product called Banbar, which was touted as a miracle diabetes cure. Banbar was a patent medicine marketed to diabetics. Insulin had also become the standard treatment for diabetes at this time, but many people forego insulin for Banbar. Now what happened is Banbar was created by a shirt salesman whose last name was Bartlett, and he somehow came upon this extract. Banbar was actually an extract of horsetail weed, which isn't, I guess, very good for you. Hundreds of people ended up dying from using this Banbar therapy, and the government took Bartlett to court. And now this is pre-FDA. So the government took Bartlett to court for selling a misbranded drug, and they even showed the court death certificates of people with diabetes who had taken Banbar. Now what happened is the court ruled in Bartlett's favor, despite the submission of death certificates to the court showing the fate of many who had rejected insulin in favor of Banbar. But the government lost the case anyways, because to the jury, many believed that this product actually worked. And so the FDA wasn't enough that this evidence showed people had died. They had to show evidence that Bartlett intended to defraud his customers. And because they believed the product actually worked, the government could not prove that. But, it created, despite the government's loss in this particular case, it created such a public health outcry, elevating the importance and need for public health in the public over proprietary rights. And it was such a critical concern that it helped to make the Congress pass the 1938 Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which was a big act at its time because there was hundreds of bills in Congress involving formalizing a government agency that would review food and drugs and things of that nature. Another thing that came out, which was kind of the final nail to help the Congress pass this Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act, happened in 1937, and it's involving a product which has a title almost like a Sherlock Holmes story. So it's an elixir that was also known as the Taste of Raspberries or the Taste of Death. Bum, bum, bum. All right, so this elixir was created by a Tennessee drug company, and they made what is called elixir sulfanilamide. You can find the name of this elixir for yourself in the show notes, and you can see if you approve of my pronunciation. Sulfanilamide is a drug that was used to treat streptococcal infections, strep throat for the layman, and sulfanilamide had been shown to have dramatic curative effects and had been used safely for some time in tablet and powder form. In June 1937, however, a salesman for a pharmaceutical company, S.E. Massengill Co., reported a demand in the southern states to have this sulfanilamide, in liquid form. So through experimentation, the company found that this elixir would dissolve in diethylene glycol. And then the company had this mixture tested for flavor and scent, found it satisfactory. Then they immediately had it shipped all over the country. Everyone was getting sulfaniluminide, and everyone was pronouncing it correctly, I assume. The new formula, however, had not been tested for toxicity because at the time, the law didn't require them to do so. Now, this diethylene glycol, which was the substance that this company found that caused sulfaniluminide to dissolve in liquid. Yeah, so diethylene glycol is a deadly poison typically used in antifreeze. And diethylene glycol was not listed in the ingredients of this elixir because the law didn't require the company to have to. So during September and October 1937, the drug was responsible for the deaths of more than 100 people in 15 different states, as far east as Virginia and west as California. Victims of elixir sulfaniluminide poisoning, many of them children being treated for their strep throats, were ill about 7 to 21 days, and they had symptoms similar to that of kidney failure. Stoppage of urine, severe abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, stupor, convulsions. It got taken care of through a combination of the American Medical Association and the people who would go on to make up the FDA. And so they were able to isolate elixir sulfaniluminide as the source of the deaths and diethylene glycol as the specific culprit within the elixir causing the deaths. You can imagine without a formal government agency to put a stop to this, there was a lot of late hours and a lot of getting together different people of different occupations to help retrieve all the elixirs that had been shipped by this company all throughout the country. And what's kind of interesting about these incidents of quackery is some in the public who are unwilling to let go of the product or of what was being hawked by the quack. So even after the elixir was identified, some physicians were unwilling to admit that they had prescribed it at some point, and some parents were unwilling to let go of the samples that they obtained. And there's one story that was noted by someone at the time. A physician had postponed his wedding to help an FDA chemist search for a 3-year-old boy whose family had moved into the mountain country after obtaining a prescription of this elixir. But ultimately, everything was able to get reined in. It was this specific incident which led FDR to sign the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of June 25, 1938, and that was a big step towards the FDA being created, probably the biggest step towards FDA being created in the 1960s.
Live your life right. Oh, mama dear, we're not the fortunate ones, and girls, they wanna have fun. Oh, girls just wanna have fun.
All right, so that was some quacky quacks, huh? Some quackery, quackity quacks. Sometimes quacking can be a little on the edge. You know, you're not sure if what you're seeing is a quack, especially when a quack is being presented to you via promotion of Oprah. I mean, come on, Oprah wouldn't recommend me any quacks, would she? Well, guys, let's go on to the last story here. That's Dr. Oz, cardiothoracic surgeon and Columbia University professor, accused of towing the line of quackery, but hasn't been caught in anything illegal just yet. So some of you may be surprised by me talking about Dr. Oz in this context. At the height, he was broadcasted to 118 countries. He had 300 million viewers, and his show received 9 Emmys. And you may have remembered that at one time, his show was connected to something called the Dr. Oz effect, where sales were guaranteed to explode for any products that were featured on his program.
Today on the Dr. Oz Show, and the miracle procedure to laser off your fat in minutes without surgery.
I've just revealed the best supplements to blast your belly, but to finish the job, you also have to eat less. Now, to do that, I've got a miracle appetite suppressant to kill your hunger.
Now, around 2014, and pretty much since then, Dr. Oz got into trouble for a string of what he would call miracle weight loss products. Now, this is what he got in trouble for, is just hyperbole, overselling these products as being miracles. One particular product that got him in a lot of trouble was green coffee bean extract, Once again, it's important to note that Dr. Oz himself was not found illegal for anything. But what happened is Dr. Oz had a guy on named Lindsay Duncan, and Lindsay Duncan was promoting this green bean coffee extract. And the Federal Trade Commission ultimately charged Lindsay Duncan's company $9 billion for promoting this false green coffee bean extract. All right, so what the original claim is that for consumers who took this extract, they would lose 17 pounds and 16% of their body fat in 12 weeks without diet or exercise. Wow, that's a miracle. But really, this extract didn't do nothing for you. And the story behind this Federal Trade Commission charge is kind of interesting. And so this is a real quoted statement from the Federal Trade Commission charge. So what happened is a producer with the Dr. Oz show first contacted Duncan without him appearing as a guest to discuss green coffee bean extract the morning of April 5, 2012. The producer wrote, "We are working on a segment about the weight loss benefits of green coffee bean, and I was hoping that Lindsay Duncan might be available to be our expert. Has he studied green coffee bean at all? Would he be able to talk about how it works?" At that time, Duncan had no familiarity with the purported weight loss benefits of green coffee bean extract. Nor did his defendants, the company, nor did they sell this extract. Nevertheless, within a few hours, a senior member of the defendant's public relations team replied, "Awesome, thanks for reaching out. Dr. Lindsay does have knowledge of the green coffee bean. He loves it." Later that day, defendants contacted a manufacturer of green coffee bean extract and, on or about the same day, submitted a wholesale order of green coffee bean extract raw material. Okay, so once again, Dr. Oz wasn't the guy implicated here, but it was a little shady that producers of his show had basically was reaching out and making a story and also making some product be healthy, quote unquote healthy. And so this is the charges that were brought onto Dr. Oz, that he was choosing to ignore science in favor of hyperbole. And when I say charges, as of yet, no real legal charges had been brought onto him successfully. But a major public thing that happened is he was asked to speak on weight loss scams by Senate Commerce Subcommittee Chairwoman Claire McCaskill, a Democrat of Missouri, at the time at least.
Quote, "Garcinia cambogia, it may be the simple solution you've been looking for to bust your body fat for good." I don't get why you need to say this stuff, because you know it's not true. So why, when you have this amazing megaphone and this amazing ability to communicate, why would you cheapen your show by saying things like that?
Well, if I could disagree about whether they work or not, and I'll move on to the issue of the words that I used. And just with regards to whether they work or not, take green coffee bean extract as an example. I'm not going to argue that it would pass FDA muster if it was a pharmaceutical drug seeking approval, but among the natural products that are out there, this is a product that has several clinical trials. There was one large one, a very good quality one, that was done the year that we talked about this in 2012. Listen, I want to know about that clinical trial, because the only one I know was 16 people in India that was paid for by the company that was in fact, at the point in time you initially talked about this being a miracle, the only study that was out there was the one with 16 people in India that was written up by somebody who was being paid by the company that was producing it.
So that was a little fun video there. Once again, what he did isn't necessarily illegal, but there's no question that the Dr. Oz show perpetuated the quick fix in a pill, a miracle mythology of weight loss and distracted viewers away from taking sensible approaches to weight loss. So it appeared that Dr. Oz's producers either willingly offered up appearances on their show, or they turned a blind eye to the financial interests of their guests, thus in essence making the show a marketing arm of the supplement industry. With all this stuff, outside of losing some viewers and some support, Dr. Oz really doesn't appear to have been much impacted by this quackery. And quackery, it really is, folks. Even if he didn't get charged, and he is a real surgeon, I'm not taking that away from him. It's what he's doing with his credentials that makes the man. All right, it makes the doctor, makes the man. And there are some interesting lawsuits that have been brought on to him, none of which have been successful as of yet. There was one weird one in 2013 where a man who tried Oz's do-it-yourself DIY insomnia fix, which was to fill a sock with rice, microwave it, and put it on your foot. And I don't have exactly all the details on this, but Dr. Oz claimed it had something to do with the heating of your foot, which would cause cooling in the rest of your body, something like that, and it would help you go to sleep. The man tried this despite having a medical affliction where he doesn't feel nerve endings in his foot, so he suffered third-degree burns. And that lawsuit was thrown away. There was another lawsuit in 2016 where the plaintiffs alleged that they were misled into buying worthless supplements that were touted by Dr. Oz as fat-burning supplements. So that's just a couple examples. For his part, Dr. Oz, since these 2014 public shaming and some of these things, he stopped using the miracle word and seems to be quieting down a little on the hyperbole, but his reputation has been tainted by his quackery and the quacks that he's had on the show. And there's some mixed opinions about him. I'm all about giving people a fair shake, and I read a New York Times op-ed that was defending Dr. Oz. You can get that, read that if you would like, at rishib.com in the show notes for this episode. Well, that's all I have for the Infamous Quacks, for this episode at least. Now, my friend Maha Grish was supposed to come here for pop culture recommendations, but he's not responding to my cell phone text. I don't know. Wait, what the? Dude, what the hell?
Hey, Rishi B, I'm here for the reviews, right on time.
Well, that's wonderful, but why did you break my window? You couldn't knock on the door like a normal person?
Doors are for chumps, my friend. Think outside the box. Think inside the window. All right, let's keep this moving with my quick pop culture picks.
Kill me.
In a segment called
Bare Naked Review.
Yeah. Oh, I'm feeling reviews. I'm feeling bare naked here. Let's go. Just went to Lollapalooza. Thumbs up to Arcade Fire, Big Sean, Lil Yachty's audio sucked. Here, just went to my car to listen to Minnesota. Next up, comedian Pete Holmes. Check out his HB show, Crashing. Check out his podcast, He Made It Weird, for fans of spiritual and comedy. Got a new special called Faces and Sounds. That's actually pretty funny. You can get such highlights as when he goes to an Enrique Iglesias concert by himself. But yeah, man, his show Crashing, The Life of a Comedian, coming up. Produced by Judd Apatow. It's got Sarah Silverman, Artie Lang, TJ Miller. Next up, Jay-Z, 444. Finally. Hip-hop for the grown man and for the grown woman, for the grown adults. Jay-Z's a guy who can push the genre forward, None of the greatest rap artists outside of Jay-Z's era have lived to his age and are still on the radio. So you gotta listen to it, man. Hip-hop for adults. Next up, come on, feel me. Geek History Lesson Podcast. Everyone needs to listen to this. They do deep dives into comics and film lore behind whatever's the hottest thing out. You don't have to read the comics, just listen for an hour. Go behind the scenes of Wonder Woman, the book history, Game of Thrones, deep dives, Spider-Man deep dives. Y'all love diving, don't you? Come on. I know you love diving. Lastly, Calvin Harris's Funk Wave Bounces. Album of the summer, come on. funky summer reprieve from everything that's on the news, all that shit. Just ignore all that. Everyone and their grandma are collabing here. You got Pharrell, Katy Perry, Big Sean, Travis Scott, Migos. Check it out.
All right, thank you all very much for listening to this episode of Healthy Schmelthy. Music breaks for today's episode comes courtesy of the band Starfucker, based from Portland, Oregon. If you dig them, get more of them at starfucker.com. That's STRFKR.com. And I guess that's it for today. That's a wrap.